Hello everybody, this is Tyler here once again from the Character Workshop. Welcome back to another It Came From England episode that I honestly was not expecting to do. Just like with the last episode, where I was originally going to talk about Ed's World, but I ended up talking about the fact that Z. Mark Anthony's YouTube channel got taken down. This episode was originally going to be me talking about Pingu, but a recent event happened that I had to, talk about this instead. So, for those of you guys who don't know, especially if you're not from the Thomas community, longtime UK narrator of Thomas and Friends, Michael Angelis, passed away last week, May 30th, 2020, due to a heart attack. So, I thought for this episode, in honor of, or at least paying tributes to Michael Angelis, I decided to do an episode pretty much talking about his time on Thomas and Friends. Like I mentioned earlier, he was a narrator for the show for a really, really long time. So, when did he start narrating Thomas and Friends, you may ask? Well, it was way back in the early 90s during Season 3, where he took over as the UK narrator of the show after Ringo Starr left, just like how George Carlin took over the American dub after Ringo Starr left. So, and funny enough, before Season 3 premiered on television, the first 16 episodes came out on VHS, narrated by Michael Angelis. However, the way he narrated those episodes sounded a bit different than, the narrations that some of you may recognize him for nowadays. Which, kind of interesting. I guess, I'm not really sure why they did this, but maybe it was just a test of grounds, see how Michael Angelis could be as a narrator, what he could do to improve. Maybe that could be why they did it, but I guess I'll never know. And from Season 3, he was the narrator all the way up until Season 16. And as of right now, he even still holds this record to this day. He has the record of being the longest running narrator of Thomas and Friends, narrating the show for 14 seasons, 21 years, and also narrated a variety of specials relating to the show. Yeah, he had quite a long runtime, and yeah, I guess was so dedicated to the series that he narrated the show for that long. So I honestly appreciate Angelis's dedication to the show. And it wasn't just Thomas and Friends that he narrated the TV show, but he also did audio narrations for the first couple of Railway Series books. In case you don't know what the Railway Series is, it's the series of books that Thomas and Friends is based off. So, yeah, kind of cool that he, does Thomas-related stuff outside the TV series. So, yeah, Angelis, what a great guy. And now time for me to talk about my own personal experience with Angelis's Thomas narrations. Now, here in the US, we didn't really have Angelis that much as a narrator. However, there was only one exception where he narrated episodes for the American dub, and that was in the VHS and DVD titled New Friends for Thomas, which featured 4 episodes from Season 7 and 2 episodes from Season 6. And those episodes were Jack Jumps In, A Friend in Need, Emily's New Coaches, The Spotless Record, Peace and Quiet, and Gordon and Spencer. Those were the only episodes of the show that Angelis narrated for the American dub. And yeah, just like me and a lot of other people who, grew up with the US dub of Thomas, that was the only time we ever heard Angelis's narrations before discovering YouTube. So, and at the time when I was a kid, at first, when I first got this, VHS, by the way, I had the VHS copy of that instead of the DVD, so But when I first got the VHS and I heard this narration, I'm like, this is different. This isn't Alec Baldwin or somebody else. This is somebody completely different. And as a kid, I always wondered why, he only narrated that one VHS tape here in the US. DVD as well, but yeah. And I've heard rumors on the internet. I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard rumors from one of the Thomas fan sites that said the reason why that DVD and VHS was narrated by Michael Angelis here in the US was he was originally considered to be the next American narrator to take over the show after Alec Baldwin left. And if that rumor's true, it's honestly kind of a shame he didn't take over the show after Baldwin left. Because to be honest, in retrospect, I would have rather heard Angelis narrating the show than Michael Brandon, because Angelis doesn't make my ears bleed like Brandon does. Now, in terms of his UK narrations, I have not seen too many of them, but the ones I have seen, I've definitely, really enjoyed, and kind of like comparing his narrations to like, other Thomas narrators like Carlin, Baldwin, etc. Some of my favorite moments of Angelis's narrations, I think my favorite character that he did the voice for in his narrations is probably James. I had a feeling he must have had like, a real hoot sort of playing as James. I've noticed like, with Angelis's narrations, James is kind of a little bit more louder and boisterous compared to a lot of the other characters. And I'm assuming, it could be that Angelis might have been trying to portray James as like the oh, I'm so elegant, notice me kind of personality. I don't know. But I always have so much fun hearing Angelis doing James's voice. And funny enough, in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, which I do plan on doing a review of next month, Angelis was originally going to be the voice of both James and Percy in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, but was instead replaced by two different female voice actresses. One of them, Susan Roman, who voiced James in Thomas and the Magic Railroad. I think she was a voice actress for Sailor Moon. Don't really know why. I would have loved to see Angelis voice those characters, but apparently test audiences thought, his voice for like James and Percy made the characters sound old, but yeah, it was such a disappointment. And on the topic of his voice for James, one of my favorite James moments from Angelis' narration was in his narration for Gordon and Spencer from season 7, when after Gordon pretty much rescues Spencer from being stuck on Gordon's hill and brings him back to the station, and then Thomas then whispers to James, what do you think about that? And then James yells, too much puff and not enough steam! I've been wondering if that was intentional or not, but either way it goes, it was pretty funny. And being on the show for like 21 years, he has been around through a variety of different changes relating to Thomas and Friends. First off, he was a narrator in the classic series, seasons 3 to 7, so he was pretty much a narrator during, what literally everybody in the Thomas community refers to as the golden age of Thomas and Friends. And he was around during what a lot of fans would call the new series, season 8 to season 11 or 12, really depending on like, whether you consider season 12 to be the last season of the new series or the first season of the CGI series. But he was around during that. And funny enough, after season 11, he was originally, not going to be the narrator of the show afterwards, along with Michael Brandon in the American dub, because they were considering having Pierce Bronson, who narrated The Great Discovery, take over as the narrator for both dubs, but unfortunately, he never got to narrate the episodes properly, so they just decided to bring back, both Michaels, so yeah. And then Angelis continued being the narrator of the show for another 5 years, and of course was a narrator during the first 4 seasons of the full CGI series, which of course had, Sharon Miller as head writer, and a lot of people didn't really like those episodes that much, but yeah, he was around during that, so he has been around through, I've already mentioned this before, like, pretty much a good portion of Thomas's history, so wow. Why did Angelis decide to leave the show, you may ask, after season 16? I'm honestly not sure. Maybe it's because he's gotten, tired of narrating the show. I mean, then again, after being the narrator of some of, the show's worst episodes, I wouldn't blame him, but yeah, not really sure why he left, and sitting with Michael Brandon, they both pretty much left the show around the same time, but Angelis, the past 21 years that you narrated the show have been pretty good. Like, in terms of the episodes themselves, they've had their ups and downs, but you were still there throughout most of it, so like I mentioned earlier in the episode, I do appreciate, your dedication to the show, Michael Angelis, and you will forever be missed by a lot of people in the Thomas community, if not everybody in the Thomas community, pretty much. And that's pretty much gonna about wrap it up for this little tribute video to Michael Angelis. So, for those of you who grew up, listening or watching Angelis's narrations on Thomas and Friends, or if you're an American such as myself, have you watched any of them on YouTube? What do you think? Are you gonna miss him? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. So, that is about it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little tribute to Michael Angelis. I'm not gonna do my normal outro this time around since I am paying tribute to, somebody who passed away, so I will see you guys next time, and just like with this episode, I would recommend bringing a box of tissues for the next episode.